Recording. Hello.
Star.
I've trained you well. Recording star.
Yay! This is a
Hello?
long
Yes.
chapter.
Hold on to your butts. Strap in.
Guys, I kind of like Elend now.
Oh. That's great. Welcome. Well, not that I really like him. I'm just like, I'm so indifferent to him.
The word kinda is still pulling a lot of weight. Because there's still a certain quality that I will mention when we get to it later in the chapter that I still really, really dislike about him. But I found myself enjoying Elend a lot this chapter.
Yeah, rather than being just entirely annoyed by him. And okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
But no, this was a pretty darn good chapter. We get our next ball. We'll get into it. It's lots of really good stuff. How about you, Kitteh?
Yes, we get some not political, like courtly intrigue, which is interesting to witness and feel that out. And then we have a reminder as well of the situation we're in. Vin has to be just reminded of she's in these two worlds now. She really enjoys being in this noble world. What does that mean?
Yes.
But we'll get to that part.
It's the glitz. It's the glam. It's Elysium. It's Hollywood. It's not good for her.
No. Yes, and just bear with me for whatever. There's more females. Well, there's more female in this than usual. So enjoy whatever comes of this. Dorkus is trying very hard to coach me, and he's got a lot of patience. So
look, Kitteh, I'm going to start giving you some acting lessons off camera or off mic, and we'll get you up to being a fantastic performer.
The absolute faith. Yes. Like I know your skills of your teaching skills would do well, but you underestimate my incompetence. But let us continue. Let us get into epigraph. Oh wait, we actually haven't said our thing.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
Hello,
and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I, ThatDarnKitteh, am joined by my wonderful co-host, Dorkus. Dorkus and I are both going into this story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way. This is Mistborn Abridged, a blind read-through, and today we will be covering chapter 18. I just said my R's. That was my accent of yours. That's it.
Wow, the hard R. You could say that circumstances forced me to leave my home behind. Certainly if I had stayed, I would now be dead. During those days, running without knowing why, carrying a burden I didn't understand, I assumed that I would lose myself in Klenium and seek a life of indistinction. I'm slowly coming to understand that anonymity, like so many other things, has already been lost to me forever.
That's pretty funny because we don't know his name.
No.
Like I know what he means by anonymity, like not being known at all. But yeah, we don't know his name. Sorry, I just saw that irony right now. Sorry. So how did you take that one?
This idea of losing oneself feels really, really important to me. For the Lord Ruler and this journey of his. He starts off as, if it's to be believed, this humble son of a blacksmith, and this idea that he might have grown up in a life of indistinction with no feeling of identity, only to be told that he's the chosen one to become the Lord Ruler. And as you so aptly pointed out, we don't even know his name right now. And if we're going with this idea of him being possessed so to speak, if this journey changed him, whatever he did with the deepness fundamentally changed him and who he is. If it turned him evil, then he has, in fact, lost who he was, even if he is the Lord Ruler.
Absolutely. Well put. Yeah, he's lost. He has already lost himself. So I would lose myself in Clinium and seek a life in indistinction. He's already lost himself in this alternative.
The line, if I had stayed, I would now be dead, right? So my initial reading of that was like, oh, maybe someone was chasing him to stop him and trying to kill him. But on second reading, I'm wondering if this is after he's attained immortality.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's like a generation or two later, and he should be dead. And that's why he's thinking it instead of, the first thing.
Yeah, that's exactly the second time of that. I would now be dead. It's not even the fact that there would have been some sort of happening that caused his death, that some violence or whatever. It's like, no, actually he just would have died of old age. And you have to remember the fact that this guy has somehow in some way attained immortality, and remember that thing that you brought up immediately in the beginning of us talking about immortality, it usually coming with a price. Yes. Yeah, he's lost. It's come with a personal price to him, definitely. But it also seems to have come at a dear price to the world. We don't have green things anymore.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
She decided to wear the red dress. It was definitely the boldest choice, but that felt right. After all, she hid her true self behind an aristocratic appearance. The more visible that appearance was, the easier it should be for her to hide. Okay, Vin, I thought you wanted controlled anonymity. It doesn't seem to me that you should be making such a big statement with your outfits then, if you want to blend. I'm worried you might be overdoing it here. What do you think, Kitty?
I didn't go there initially because I know how over the top. Well, I can imagine how over the top other dresses are. So even if, I guess she is still making a statement with this color and with, just like notice me. But often the way that she's spoken about the other noble women's appearances, it's as if their dresses are just over the top and even more than what she's been wearing. So this must be the biggest number that she has worn, if you know what I'm saying.
It's funny you say that. In contrast to what we learn later and certain less than kind comments made to her.
Yeah.
How bold is this choice, really?
Mm.
Oh, poor Vin. Oh, poor toxic femininity.
Yay! Let's enjoy that. It exists. That actually is, there's a lesson in that. Just look out for it. See if you can spot it in this episode.
No, I'm glad. In actuality, I'm glad that Vin is making a bold choice, and if it helps her get into character, by all means, do it.
Yes, there you go. She's getting into character. It helps her out.
A footman opened the carriage door. Vin took a deep breath. A chest a little confined by the special corset she was wearing to hide her bandages, then accepted the footman's hand and climbed down. She straightened her dress, nodded to Sazed, then joined the other aristocrats, making their way up the steps to Keep Ilariel. It was a bit smaller than the Keep of House Venture. However, Keep Ilariel apparently had a separate party ballroom, while House Venture had its gatherings in the enormous main hall. Vin eyed the other noblewomen and felt a bit of her confidence vanish. Her dress was beautiful, but the other women had so much more than just gowns. Their long flowing hair and self-assured airs matched their bejeweled figures. They filled out the upper portions of their dresses with voluptuous curves, and moved elegantly in the frilled splendor of the full skirts. Vin occasionally caught glimpses of the women's feet, and they didn't wear simple slippers like her own, but rather high-heeled shoes.
Why don't I have shoes like that?
Heels take practice to walk in, mistress. Since you've only just learned to dance, it might be best if you wore ordinary shoes for a time. We're getting a bit of jealousy going on here, and insecurities, yeah?
Yes. Listen, a flat-chested person is always going to wonder about what filling out the upper portions of your dress would be like, because you know that's probably a desirable trait. What would I know about that sort of thing? I don't know. But
is that a real thing, Kitteh?
it's, yeah, I mean it's one of the two of the things that men don't have, and having more of it makes men remember that you're not like them. You're female and a prospective mate to them. So it's one of the most important body parts that you can have as a woman. Two of the most. Sorry, again, two. Um, I'm really messing this up. Yes, so
But
yeah,
also
then
the shoes.
yes, the shoes. Okay, so the shoes. She is feeling inadequate. That's easier to admit inadequacy about, and wonder about your shoes. Well, I mean, at least I can wear shoes like the other woman. I might not have a body like the other woman, but I can wear stuff like them, right? Right? And yeah, she's wearing pumps basically because heels are just a bad idea at this point, and I think Sazed made a great decision there. And I
Yes.
think Ben appreciates it later on as well.
Also,
Because
she's
even,
injured.
yes, that too. That's not going to help you out in your freaking stilettos when you've got a wound that could. Oh yeah, it's all very logical, Vin. But your immediate thing when like going to a party or whatever, your immediate thing is, especially as a young girl, you're going to compare yourself to everyone else there, and a ball is all about showing up and being seen. So immediately the first thing is evaluations, and she's like, oh, she was proud of her dress, her it was a wow bold. We were saying how it's a bold statement, and then oh, but everybody else is,
Boom.
yeah.
Insecurity.
Yeah, so it's the jealousy. You can see the jealousy just comes from that insecurity, which
And
big surprise.
just how she's gone from I just want trousers and a shirt to why don't I have high heels?
Really, that's so true. It's a good way to sum it up. She's really taken on her role. I think she's taking it very seriously. She's
Yes.
leaned into the whole clothing thing for
Yes.
various reasons, and I don't hate her for it, man. I think it's cute.
Same.
Hmm.
Vin frowned but accepted the explanation. Sazed's mention of dancing, however, increased her discomfort. She remembered the flowing poise of the dancers at her last ball. She certainly wouldn't be able to imitate that. She barely knew the basic steps.
That won't matter. They won't see me. They'll see Lady Valette. She's supposed to be new and uncertain, and everyone thinks she's been ill lately. It will make sense for her to be a poor dancer.
That thought in mind, Vin reached the top of the stairs feeling a bit more secure. I must say, mistress, you seem far less nervous this time. In fact, you seem excited. This is the proper attitude for Valette to display, I think. And I just have to say for a moment, this is the start of, I fear, what is going to be a regular complaint of mine.
Mm-hmm.
That they continue to talk in ways that they shouldn't at these balls.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, even there, I didn't do any kind of accent, whatever, when she did speak. She did ask about heels and whatever, and that would make it worse. Like she should be speaking in accent the whole time. So inaccuracy in performance here, but that also is yeah.
I don't mind her asking why she doesn't have high heels.
Mm.
Like that could just be like a family dynamic of the terracemen preparing the outfits or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
fine. Yeah.
is talking about Valette
What
and using the name in that grammatical way as if
it's weird.
you aren't Valette. And then, of course, some dialogue coming up later.
Yeah, they continue. The reason that I brought up the accent thing, it wasn't so much about the content of what she's asking, but like just because of the way I shied away from giving her an accent. Technically, that would also be part of it. Like she's got to talk, she got to speak in character the whole time, whatever character that would be. It would not be Southern. But I wonder if when she does speak like in little asides to Sazed, whether she would be an accent, because they don't seem to take much notice of, of this thing, the way that they're speaking now. That I don't, we're supposed to believe it's quiet enough, but I don't know. There's people that could burn tin. I just don't think it's a good idea.
And we learn that even though it's not considered polite to allamance at balls, people are going to be doing it anyway. So
yeah. Oh yes, just another thing like that I have noticed as well with the balls and with the sorry, I'm 12. Another lamentation or I don't know quibble thing is the way sometimes Vin is asking questions like the asking about the shoes. That's normal, that's fun because she's just noticed that. But some things like it happened in the previous one where she asked about dancing and things like that, or there's certain things that you think that they would prepare, she would know these things. And I think from a writing standpoint you could give us some exposition just from the character's mind that it had been. I know that the questions are being asked to Sazed in the moment so that we can understand what happened, but it's kind of seems unprepared if she's asking questions in the moment. This is a big job.
Like
she shouldn't be asking these things now.
We'll get to it in a handful of paragraphs, but yeah, she's asking questions that should have been addressed prior. And I would like to believe that the audience is smart enough to pick up on certain subtextual clues. So like with this particular line, if it were something like, "You seem far less nervous this time. In fact, you seem excited. I am glad to see it, Lady Volette."
Yes.
That
Why
slight
not?
change
Yeah.
makes it feel more in character for Lady Volette, not Vin.
Yeah. And that's not change. Yeah.
And like you can have moments where Vin breaks character because it's not something that she's incredibly practiced at, but then you need Sazed there to prod her back into, or chastise her back into character.
By being in character himself.
Yes.
Not by saying we should not be speaking like this. Instead of be like, just carry on, just be smooth. Because she's smart enough for that. She understands subtlety. Yeah, yes. It's look, it's not like I'm, oh no, the book's bad. It's just no. This is maybe one of my biggest gripes in these interactions is it would have been so much more smooth and slick, because all she has done with Sazed is prepare for this. Like that's all they're doing. She's not running around in the mists or anything like that. So they should have spoken about all of these things. I'll give her the shoes. That's it. But some of the questions, and also in the beginning, the first ball as well, some of those questions, I was like, wait a second, dude, you should really have spoken about this before. No wonder she freaked out when she walked in there. We hadn't talked about any of this. And there is nothing wrong with when you're writing, and I say this as a reader, picking up on how the character knows something from a previous, you can headcanon your way into certain things, but also there's just subtle ways of signaling to the reader they spoke about this earlier. That's how she knows.
The reader doesn't necessarily need to be privy to these specific lessons that Vin should have already had for us to pick up on subtext and subtleties. So she smiles and says,
"Thank you."
He was right. She was excited. Excited to be part of the job again. Excited even to be back among the nobility, with their splendor and grace. They stepped up to the squat ballroom building, one of several low wings extending from the main keep, and a servant took her shawl. Vin lingered a moment inside the doorway, waiting as Sazed arranged her table and meal. The Elariel ballroom was very different from the majestic Venture Grand Hall. The dim room was only a single story high, and while it had a lot of stained glass windows, they were all in the ceiling. Circular rose window skylights shone from above, lit by small limelights on the roof. Each table was set with candles, and despite the light from above, there was a reserved darkness about the room. It seemed private, despite the numerous people in attendance. This room had obviously been designed to accommodate parties. A sunken dance floor lay at its center, and this was better lit than the rest of the room. There were 2 tiers of tables circling the dancing floor. The first tier was only a few feet above. The other was farther back and about twice as high. A servant led her to a table at the rim of the room. She sat, Sazed taking his customary place beside her, and began to wait for her meal to arrive.
How exactly am I supposed to get the information Kelsia wants?
She asked quietly, scanning the dark room. The deep crystalline colors from above projected patterns across tables and people, creating an impressive atmosphere, yet making it difficult to distinguish faces. Was Elend here, somewhere amid the ballgoers?
Okay, hold up.
So,
yeah. Okay,
so
what's your comment?
do we need to rehash the Kelsier name drop? Or was that covered?
Okay, no, there, we just signaled it, okay? We just said, by the way, there you go. We just add that. We don't have to rehash it, but we're pointing it out. Okay?
Yes.
Again.
Great. Then, was Elend somewhere amid the ballgoers?
Yeah, she's thinking about him. That's nothing. Okay, yes, okay, she does have a little bit of work on the mind, but it's like, how am I supposed to see where Elend is in this darkness? I'm so crushed.
This is the cause for the excitement, yeah?
I think so. Yeah, she's like, look, I dressed up. I'm wearing my red dress. Come on, where is he? I'm here for it.
And that's totally why she picked the red dress, right?
Yes, exactly. But she's like, no. How am I supposed to work in these conditions? Rather than actually wait, how am I supposed to see my crush in these conditions?
Tonight, some men should ask you to dance. Accept their invitations. This will give you an excuse to seek them out later and mingle in their groups. You don't need to participate in conversations. You merely have to listen. At future balls, perhaps some of the young men will begin to ask you to accompany them. Then you'll be able to sit at their table and listen to all of their discussions.
You mean sit with one man the entire time?
It's not uncommon. You would dance only with him that night as well. So again, stuff that should have been discussed already.
Yeah.
Vin frowned, but she let the matter drop, turning to inspect the room again.
He's probably not even here. He said he avoided balls whenever possible. Even if he were here, he'd be off on his own. You won't even...
A muted thump sounded as someone dropped a stack of books onto her table. Vin jumped in startlement, turning as Elend Venture pulled over a chair, then sat down with a relaxed posture. He leaned back in the chair, angling toward a candelabrum beside her table, and opened a book to begin reading. So...
What an entrance.
Yeah, that was a big notch toward likable for me. And the first notch, just because of the comedic nature that I imagined it in my mind, and just
the
chutzpah,
yeah, it is likable. I did like it as well. Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna bother me when I read books.
Exactly. Look, his motivations. Just going back to his motivations. Yes, I do feel like initially him being interested in Vin is a bit of rebellion, but I do think he is interested in her.
I agree.
And yeah, and it just so what he can have this need to look rebellious and be rebellious and also like her at the same time. So yeah, and I think this is him.
There's so much I want to say, but I'm waiting for specific lines to say it.
Okay. You can point them out. Wait for the specific lines. Let's go.
But yes, I do believe that Elend has a bit of an infatuation with Vin. Maybe not quite as much as a full-on crush, but I think that is going to develop in no small part because of some of the things that Vin says and does. Yeah, and I'll point out those moments as we go.
Yeah, and well, I think also he's interested in, he's just playful with her as well. Like, he's curious about her in the beginning, and then I point out those moments. I'm sure I'll agree with them. So yeah, at the moment it's just like it's a lot of fun for him. But we do, I think, there's more things to like him for. But yes, let's see. Let's go.
Sazed frowned. Vin hid a smile, eyeing Elend. And I enjoyed imagining Sazed just being like
Oh, this guy. Yeah.
sweating. You
Mm-hmm.
know the Key and Peele meme with the
Yes.
sweat
Like,
dripping down?
yeah. Yes.
That's how I pictured Sazed during this whole encounter.
Poor Sazed as well. Did he? They were all seem to be under the impression that he doesn't really like her or whatever. They did not pick up on how interested he is in her or in annoying her. Like like you said, you're gonna speak to me while I read books, like that whole thing. That's not expected. It's by them. Whereas I think Vin also she could pick up that there was something there. That's also what made her so excited. So it wasn't just this one-sided thing. She got some sort of energy from him, and Sazed is not only irritated by this, but I think he would also be a bit surprised. Like, oh my god, Vin isn't why like they really don't realize that Vin is it's quite something.
Yes. Vin hid a smile, eyeing Elend. He still didn't look as if he had bothered to brush his hair, and again wore his suit without the buttons done up. The garment wasn't shabby, but nor was it as rich as others at the party. It seemed to have been tailored to be loose and relaxed, defying the traditional sharp, well-cut fashion. Elend flipped through his book. Vin waited patiently for him to acknowledge her, but he continued to read. Finally, Vin raised an eyebrow.
Okay, so how are we going to play this?
Well, how do you want to play it, Kitteh?
I don't remember giving you permission to sit by my table, Lord Venture.
Don't mind me.
Should I just go sudden English? What do you want?
I mean, if you genuinely want to know what I want,
yes.
I want Southern Vin.
Okay, cool.
I think it's funny.
Okay, cool. Let's try.
Go for
I'm going to try and lean into it the way you do, but and like you said, not think about the words or saying it. It's more like actually being it, but I'll try. Very nervous.
The voice does the work of the spirit.
I'm going to practice next time. I'm going to practice beforehand next time so that we don't have to waste time with a million takes, okay? But this time we will. I'm sorry, future Dorkus, who is editing this.
Action.
I don't remember giving you permission to sit at my table, Lord Venture.
Don't mind me, Elend said, not looking up. You've got a big table. There's plenty of room for both of us.
Both of us, perhaps, but I'm not sure about those books. Where are the servers going to put my meal?
There's a bit of space to your left. Sazed's frown deepened. He stepped forward, gathering up the books and setting them on the floor beside Elend's chair. Elend continued to read. He did, however, raise a hand to gesture. See, now that's why I don't ever use Terraceman servants. They're an insufferably efficient lot, I must say.
Sazed is hardly insufferable. He is a good friend and probably a better man than you will ever be, Lord Venture.
Elend finally looked up. I'm sorry, he said in a frank tone. I apologize. Okay, that was another notch on the likability scale for me.
He actually apologized, yes.
And he seems very genuine about it as well.
Yes, that pause between the sorry, like he actually is. You can see shame there. He's like, oh shit, I did say something cut offhand and shitty. And yes, and good men apologize.
What he had initially said is likely a common opinion among the nobility. Yes. A learned opinion. And we know that he has those revolutionary tendencies, so he's inclined toward seeing more value in the lesser classes, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, but he also speaks the common tongue of the nobility, where they just make offhand comments about servants and things like that. So while he has those feelings, he also has to keep up appearances. Now he sees Vin isn't this kind of person at the moment.
Right.
So he will feel sorry about that, yeah.
And I will be curious to see if Sazed will have anything to say about the comment.
Later on.
Yes. It is not appropriate for you to be saying that a terraceman is better than a nobleman.
Vin. Yeah.
Or
But
something
he
like
couldn't.
that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be. And it's like, okay, then also let's not say the word cults here either. If we're going to,
Right. Right. I think it is because of comments like that, like this, that Elend is going to continue to develop feelings for Vin.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. He would be curious about, because she keeps. So Vin now going forward, she will also try to go into the common parlance of trying to just, they're just Scar kind of thing.
And you
She
can
also tries.
see,
Yeah.
and you can see how Elend reacts to that language.
Yeah. Like, it's kind of like, oh, wait, oh, I thought you were this kind of person. So they're navigating this kind of thing that they have to try to be noblemen, but without talking about their revolutionary ideas. So I like what comes next in terms of us finding out a bit more about what Elend might think about these, what Elend might really think. That's it.
It wouldn't surprise me if at some point Elend either invites her to be part of the revolution or the other way around.
And also that's a great thing as well. I guess we'll get into it later. But how do you have a revolution conversation? Because we're talking about being careful with what we say. So
Right.
There's always this risk about the other side, the other party going and going to the inquisitors and saying check at this girl. She's a revolutionary over here. Check at this guy. He's a revolutionary. So yeah, it's interesting to how you would navigate getting to that point. It will be I can't wait for that. Yeah.
So you have to do the big ask or the big joke. It's like, hey, fellow noblemen, wouldn't it be funny if there was a full-on revolution? How ridiculous. Wait, but seriously, how do you think about that? Hmm?
Exactly. Nudge, wink. Like, I don't know. How do you approach that? It's life or death. So
they'll tiptoe to it eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, but there also is a very clever way of showing us stuff about Elend without having him talk about it. So.
Yes. Vin nodded. Elend opened his book and began reading again.
Why sit with me if he's just going to read? What did you do at these parties before you had me to pester?
See now, how can I be pestering you? I mean, really, Valette, I'm just sitting here reading quietly to myself.
At my table. I'm certain you could get your own. You're the Venture heir, not that you were forthcoming about that fact during our last meeting.
True, but I do recall telling you that the Ventures were an annoying lot. I'm simply trying to live up to the description.
You're the one that made that description.
Convenient, that, Elend said, smiling slightly as he read. So, love the banter.
Yeah.
That's another slight notch towards likability. But that's all Brandon Sanderson, because he's the king of writing good banter.
Yeah, banter dialogue is great. They're flirting. He's liking the way Vin is being towards him as well. You can see that he's like, oh, okay, look, we're poking at each other, and it's very cute.
I also really like I don't think it was ever going to be a thing, but I really like that Elend knows for certain now that Vin didn't know that Elend was the Venture heir.
Yeah.
Because I imagine Elend is something of a celebrity. Not necessarily celebrity, but he's famous at least. I suspect people wouldn't be above trying to trick him.
Yes.
If Elend were of a more paranoid anima. Either way, I'm just glad that he knows for certain that she genuinely didn't know he was Elend Venture when they first met.
Yeah, and you see now we've taken that from subtext. We've just gone, oh, you see the interaction. What does this mean? We were able to take that out. We didn't need it to be told to us, right? I'm not saying that's what Brandon Sanderson does, where he shows us things, he tells us things instead of showing them. But like something like that is subtextual, easy to pick up on. You could have done that, use that sort of mechanism to give us the answers to Vin's questions for Sazed. That's just what I'm trying to, look, he's very capable of doing this sort of thing. And on the actual point that you made about him now knowing that Vin didn't know who he was, that would make her more endearing because she's not like the other girls. Because a real noble woman would have known everybody and known everything about him, and been ready to manipulate him, as opposed to him actually being the one that's interested in her. So that's another thing for him to navigate as well. As an heir, everybody is trying to suck up to him, basically. So that makes her even more endearing. I can see why he actually does genuinely like her. And yeah, that's interesting. See how much he likes her. Let's see.
Elend peeked up over his book. That's a stunning dress. It's almost as beautiful as you are. Vin froze, jaw hanging open slightly. Elend smiled mischievously, then turned back to his book, eyes sparkling as if to indicate that he'd made the comment simply because he knew the reaction he'd get.
Listen, okay, hold up. Okay, he made the comment genuinely, I think. But the thing is, he did think that. He could have just looked at her and thought that and not said it. Okay? So I think she kind of devalues the fact that he said it. It is still a compliment, but he is enjoying, I will agree, he is enjoying the fact that she did not see that coming. She didn't. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's being honest, and I also think there was a bit of poking fun is not quite the right word at her, but a little bit of I'm going to make her just a little uncomfortable right now.
Yes.
I know she's not
teasing.
going to
It's kind of
expect
teasing.
this. Yes,
Yeah.
teasing.
Yeah. And it's true. So look, he did think of her as beautiful. She's going to think about that at some point as well. But she already downplays it.
And then Sazed over here. Sazed loomed over the table, not bothering to mask his disapproval, yet he said nothing. Elend was obviously too important to be chastised by a simple steward. Vin finally found her tongue.
How is it, Lord Venture, that an eligible man like yourself comes to these balls alone?
Oh, I don't. My family usually has one girl or another lined up to accompany me. Tonight's fare is the Lady Stace Blanchet. She's the one in the green dress sitting on the lower tier across from us. Vin glanced across the room. Lady Blanchet was a gorgeous blonde woman. She kept glancing up at Vin's table, covering a scowl. Vin flushed, turning away.
Shouldn't you be down there with her?
Probably. But see, I'll tell you a secret. The truth is, I'm not really much of a gentleman. Besides, I didn't invite her. It wasn't until I got into the carriage that I was informed regarding whom I would be escorting.
I see.
My behavior is nonetheless deplorable. Unfortunately, I'm quite prone to such bouts of deplorability. Take, for instance, my fondness for reading books at the dinner table. Excuse me for a moment, I'm going to go get something to drink. He stood, tucking the book into his pocket, and walked toward one of the room's bar tables. Vin watched him go, both annoyed and bemused. This is not good, mistress.
He's not that bad.
I like how she's totally doesn't hear that he's referring to the situation rather than him.
Yeah.
This is not good, mistress. He's not that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Her head's in the clouds.
He's using you, mistress. Lord Venture is infamous for his unconventional, disobedient attitude. Many people dislike him precisely because he does things like this.
Like this?
He is sitting with you because he knows that it will annoy his family. Oh, child, I do not wish to bring you pain, but you must understand the ways of the court. This young man is not romantically interested in you. He is a young, arrogant lord who chafes at his father's restrictions, so he rebels, acting rude and offensive. He knows that his father will relent if he acts spoiled enough for long enough. Okay. So that is very much why I still don't like Elend, despite all of the likability points.
Mm-hmm.
And it will connect to some stuff that is said later. So asterisk this moment, and I'll call back to it when we get there. But if you remove the Vin of it, if Lady Valette were genuinely Lady Valette, and she comes with bright eyes and hopes of finding a man to help advance her house, falling in love, starting a family, all that kind of stuff, what Elend would be doing to her, and what Sazed seems to think Elend does to others as well, is actually kind of cruel.
Yeah, it actually is. I'm considering the way it looks, right? You see that this woman is now glaring basically at Vin, the other date. He's making enemies for her without her even knowing. Like initially, she's now realized, oh, okay, this is, and as Lady Valette, she isn't going to know how to navigate the court very well.
Mm-hmm.
She's very rural. Okay, so she's not going to. So yes, he's using that and putting her in a position she wouldn't know how to get out of or know how to handle, whether she was Vin or Valette. So yes, I do agree that, and I don't feel like that's not there at all. I do feel like he does have that motivation underlying as well. That he does that, he does these things because he's a bit of a spoiled brat, and it's his way of rebelling. But that has consequences for people. The people that he is
Mm-hmm.
involved with, like this Blanche's lady as well, they're all doing their duty for their families as well,
And
and he's disrespecting them.
and we're about to meet another character in this chapter who gives off a hell of a lot of very unlikable vibes. But Vin says something that gave me a fair amount of empathy for this character.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to that when we get to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are unintended casualties to Elend's rebellious nature.
Yeah, you can't really be such an individual in this environment without such casualties, especially with his status.
Vin felt her stomach twist.
Sazed's probably right, of course. How else would Elend seek me out? I'm exactly what he needs. Someone lowborn enough to annoy his father, but inexperienced enough not to see the truth.
Yep,
That's sore.
that's
That
sort of
hurts.
cruel. Yeah.
Like you've just come off this, he complimented you and you're flirting with him, and then, oh, by the way, he's using you. Oh, that's sore. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm. Her meal arrived, but Vin didn't have much of an appetite anymore. She began to
See?
pick at the food. Yeah, that made me really sad. She began to pick at the food as Elend returned, settling down with a large goblet filled with some mixed drink. He sipped as he read.
Let's see how he reacts if I don't interrupt his reading.
Best Vin! I
Yeah,
loved
that's
that
it.
response.
I'm not playing your game, sir. Let's see if I don't serve anything to you, what happens? Yeah.
Vin thought in annoyance, remembering her lessons and eating her food with a lady's grace. It wasn't a large meal, mostly some rich buttered vegetables, and the sooner she finished, the sooner she could get to dancing. At least then she wouldn't have to sit with Elend Venture.
Were you satisfied with the food?
I was about... No. Sorry,
Yeah.
no.
No, it's not working. Yeah, it mentioned it, but that wasn't good enough.
Because no specific vegetable, no, just butter and vegetables.
Yeah, and it would make sense for her to focus on the food a little bit more here because, she's trying to entertain herself. So it's like it's okay
And
for her to have spent time looking at the food and thinking about it.
and as a street urchin who is suddenly getting some
Yes.
of the best food in the world, like,
Yeah.
how are you not going to focus on it?
Yeah, it is something for her. Listen, you made all of this fuss about her like taking bread and putting it in her pocket and stuff. And yes, I know we're seeing her evolution, and her getting used to everything. This is still very deep inside her, and she's just been knocked off balance by this what Sazed said. So it would make sense that she would regress a little bit and get more into the urchin kind of vibe and start thinking about this food, and then we would know what strange vegetables they have. What other vegetables? World build here. Very
Yes.
yeah. And I was looking for this, and I guess maybe if this sentence, because we did say that, look, we could have had a couple sentences. Maybe if this sentence was there in the first ball, I think we'd still have criticisms because it's her first ball. She's that overwhelming,
Sure.
thing about food would actually be more important. So yeah, criticism not taken back. Mm-mm.
Exactly. Although
You can't butter us up.
I will say
Yeah.
we do get a little bit of scale to the size of the empire this chapter, for which I was very grateful.
Yeah.
So that was neat.
Forgiven. Yeah.
Several times as she ate, the young lord peeked at her over the top of his book. He obviously expected her to say something, but she held her tongue. As she ate, her anger faded. She glanced at Elend, studying his slightly disheveled appearance, watching the earnestness with which he read his book. Could this man really hide the twisted sense of manipulation Sazed implied? Was he really only using her?
By the way, okay, before we get there, this is where this sort of look, this is what I'm talking about with Vin starting to notice the way he looks, like appearance wise. Because remember, I was talking about she doesn't really think of him too much. She's never said, "Oh, he's handsome, he's this, he's that." But this is what happens in like the development of a romance. Whatever, you start looking at this person and realize, oh, I like looking at this person and noticing things, like she's now noticing how earnestly he's reading his book and things like that. That's her journey she's going on there. So I'm starting to see that. I did mention it before, so I thought I would just call it back.
It's really nice to look at people that you like.
Yeah, it is. Oh yes. Oh, just another note about what's coming up here. Okay, so anyone will betray you.
Reen whispered.
Yeah. So in the audiobook, I actually realize now that Reen has quite a sinister voice, in that he actually does a different voice for Reen in her head. It's very it's like evil. No, I wasn't going to say evil Sazed. It's like evil Yedin. It's like evil Yedin. So he's like, anyone will betray you. It's like he looks like a bit of a twisted voice. But yeah,
well, I mean,
I haven't done that on the way, so.
I mean, the voice is a manifestation of like all of her trauma, right?
Negativity. Yeah, it's true. But I think kind of just this doesn't have to be that twisted. It can just be soulless. That's what I thought. Well, anyway, I can't do it. Cut this out. You do it.
Do it. No, I don't. You've been doing the voices in her head.
Yeah, it is. It comes through there. Anyone will betray you. Everyone will betray you.
Elend seemed so genuine. He felt like a real person, not a front or a face, and it did seem like he wanted her to talk to him. It felt like a personal victory to Vin when he finally set the book down and looked at her. Why are you here, Valette?
Here at the party?
No, here in Luthadel.
Because it's the center of everything.
I suppose it is. But the Empire is a big place to have such a small center. I don't think we really understand how large it is. How long did it take you to get here? Vin felt a moment of panic, but Sazed's lesson snapped quickly into her mind.
Almost 2 months back now, with some stops.
Such a long time. They say it can take half a year to travel from one end of the Empire to the other, yet most of us ignore everything but this little bit at the center. Vin trailed off. With Reen, she'd been all across the Central Dominance. It was the smallest of the dominances, however, and she'd never visited the more exotic places in the Empire. This central area was good for thieves. Oddly, the place closest to the Lord Ruler was also the one with the most corruption, not to mention the most riches. What do you think of the city, then?
It's dirty,
she said honestly. In the dim light, a servant arrived to remove her empty plate.
It's dirty and it's full. The Scar are treated terribly, but I guess that's true everywhere.
Elend cocked his head, giving her a strange look. And that's just like another little notch in the Elend developing a crush on Vin moment, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, because she's just said, "Oh, they're treated terribly." Oh, okay, it's a noble woman who thinks the Scar
agrees with
terribly.
me.
Yes, she's a potential recruit for my revolution. But yeah,
she thinks to herself,
I shouldn't have mentioned the Scar. That wasn't very noble-like.
You think the Scar here are treated worse than the ones on your plantation? I always thought they would be better off in the city. Okay, asterisk. Asterisk. Because remember, Menace thought the same thing as well, right?
Yes, we were told that they had like wages and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm. So everybody's just always like, oh, this is probably better for them over there, but we're not going to really talk about it, so it's fine. We'll just think about it, but we won't talk about it. And I like the way you read that. The way you read that was, it's kind of conspiratorial that he's like, oh, and also like, he's like, oh shit, I thought, I don't want to hear that it's worse off for them here. I'm like, I would, the way that you read that, it's as if he is worried about the scar. So I really like that.
Thank you. Yeah, because like he already thinks that his own house treats their ska pretty darn terribly. Poor things, I think was the language he used. Then you comfort yourself with the hope that the ska elsewhere are treated better, and then to find out, wait, that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Things are worse than I thought they were.
Yeah, so that's not a fun thing, a fun thought to have, and that's what you picked up there.
And she says,
I'm not sure. I didn't go to the fields very often.
So you didn't interact with them much?
Why does it matter? They're just ska.
See, now that's what we always say. But I don't know. Maybe I'm too curious, but they interest me. Did you ever hear them talk to one another? Did they sound like ordinary people?
What? Of course they did. What else would they sound like?
Well, you know what the ministry teaches. She didn't, but if it was regarding the ska, it probably wasn't flattering.
I make it a rule to never completely believe anything the ministry says.
You're not what I expected, Lady Valette.
People rarely are.
Okay, so now he's like intrigued. If he wasn't crushing, if he just thought that she was cute before, now he's very intrigued in her.
Yeah, there is personal interest, there is personality, there is intellectual interest there.
So tell me about the plantation ska. What are they like?
Like ska everywhere else.
Are they intelligent?
Some are.
But not like you and me, right? Vin hesitated.
How would a noblewoman respond? No, of course not. They're just ska. Why are you so interested in them?
Okay, so how... I'm trying to comprehend how dumb the noblemen think the ska are.
Yeah. Okay, yes. The thing that did they speak like normal people? Like, what is the ministry telling these people? Like, how different do they really think the ska are? They like
even if you think that they are generally racially dumber than noblemen, surely you at least have to interact with them on some sort of regular basis to tell them to do your chores and to cook your food, right?
Yeah. Like, what kind of existence are you yes, what kind of interactions do you have with them that you cannot notice that they're intelligent life forms? The way that he's talking is as if like they're monkeys, that they're they're just highly intelligent animals. That it's like, oh, they're intelligent for a non-noble kind of, like they're completely different species. It's like, oh yeah, they might look like us or whatever. It's pure blown racism. Obviously. But the fact that this absolute, they feel like this is a completely different species, not even just a different race, it's just a different species. How do they work? Are they intelligent? Like, it's such a weird, and now you see the navigation of Vin has to think like a noblewoman. She can't be offended by these things, right? Because this sort of questioning is offensive. She's Scar. So she it's highly offensive, but she has to stay in character. She can't be like, well, what do you? Of course, like she's saying, well, of course they are intelligent, or of course they speak to each other like any other person. She is going through the same thing that we're going through, where we're like, wait, okay, we knew the noblemen didn't like the Scar or didn't think much of him, but we didn't realize it was this bad.
Yeah. And naturally, Elend sort of backs off at this point. Vin is smart. She realizes that she has to respond as a noblewoman would. And it's a shame because these unique answers she was giving before is what Elend, I think, finds very attractive and interesting and intriguing. So Anyway, she said,
No, of course not. They're just Scar. Why are you so interested in them?
Elend seemed disappointed. No reason, he said, sitting back in his chair and opening his book. I think some of those men over there want to ask you to dance. And the subtext there clearly is, oh, maybe you are who I thought you were.
Yeah.
Disinterested.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he was disappointed. You can see, but this is exactly how even Valette, the real Valette, would be. You can't like we were saying, having that revolutionary conversation. You can't just jump into it willy nilly with anyone. That sort of thing. You would be taking quite a huge risk.
Vin turned, noticing that there was indeed a group of young men standing a short distance from her table. They looked away as soon as she turned. After a few moments, one of the men pointed at another table. Then he walked over and asked a young lady to dance. Several people have noticed you, my lady. However, they never approach. Lord Venture's presence intimidates them, I think. Elend snorted. They should know that I'm anything but intimidating. Vin frowned, but Elend just continued to read.
Fine,
She thought, turning back toward the young men. She caught one man's eyes, smiling slightly. A few moments later, the young man approached. He spoke to her in a stiff, formal tone. Lady Renaud, I am Lord Melend Lys. Would you care to dance? Vin shot a glance at Elend, but he didn't look up from his book.
I would love to, Lord Lys,
Vin said, taking the young man's hand and rising. He led her down to the dance floor, and as they approached, Vin's nervousness returned. Suddenly, 1 week of practice didn't seem like enough. The music stopped, allowing for couples to leave or enter the floor, and Lord Lys led her forward. Vin fought down her paranoia, reminding herself that everyone saw the dress and the rank, not Vin herself. She looked up into Lord Lys's eyes and saw, surprisingly, apprehension. The music began, as did the dancing. Lord Lys's face took on a look of consternation. She could feel his palms sweating in her hands.
Why, he's just as nervous as I am. Perhaps even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Approaching women is a very scary thing.
Yeah, and then having to dance with them. Very scary, I'm sure.
Yep. I applaud Lord Lys's bravery here.
Yes.
Lys was younger than Elend, closer to her own age. He probably wasn't that experienced with balls. He certainly didn't look like he danced much. He focused so much on the steps that his motions felt rigid.
It makes sense.
Vin realized, relaxing and letting her body move in the motions Sazed had taught her.
The experienced ones wouldn't ask me to dance. Not when I'm so new. I'm beneath their notice.
That's an asterisk, because that realization is going to play into a comment that she makes to Elend later, which is, asterisking back to the first asterisk I made about how what Lord Elend is doing is kind of cruel.
Yeah, exactly. We see the mechanisms of this.
It's fantastic writing, how it all blends in with each other.
Yes, exactly. Love it. But why is Elend paying attention to me? Is it simply what Sazed said, a ploy to annoy his father? Why then does he seem interested in what I have to say? I mean, good point.
Yeah.
That's what we saw. Lord Lys, do you know much of Elend Venture?
I...
Don't focus so much on the dancing. My instructor says that it will flow more naturally if you don't try too hard.
I also want to comment there. It's not a very, what's the word? Confidence boosting thing when you've built up the courage to ask a girl to dance, only to have the girl ask you first thing.
Yeah, I did think about that. The other guy that you just took her away from. Yeah, and also say, don't worry about the dancing. It's like, oh, she has noticed that you're also very nervous, so you're doing great.
Oh, poor Lys. He blushed.
Lord Ruler, how fresh is this boy? Oh, really, Vin?
Says Vin.
Yeah, how fresh is this boy? The word, like, excuse me, Vin. This boy, because what she's after Elend. Elend is older, so this boy, yes, crushes do these things.
Lord Venture, I don't know. He's a very important person, far more important than I am.
Don't let his lineage intimidate you. From what I've seen, he's pretty harmless.
I don't know, my lady. Venture is an extremely influential house.
Yes, well, Elend doesn't live up to the reputation. He seems very fond of ignoring those in his company. Does he do that to everyone?
Elise shrugged, dancing more naturally now that they were talking. I don't know. You seem to know him better than I, my lady.
I.
Vin trailed off. She felt as if she knew him well, far better than she should know a man after 2 brief encounters. She couldn't very well explain that to Lise, however.
But maybe. Didn't Renaud say that he'd met Elend once? Oh, Elend is a friend of the family.
Vin said as they spun beneath a crystalline skylight. He is?
Yes, it was very kind of my uncle to ask Elend to watch over me at these parties, and so far he's been quite a dear. I do wish that he'd pay less attention to those books of his and more attention to introducing me, though.
So, clever Vin.
Yes, this was very clever. I liked it.
Yes, figuring out a way to make it so that Elend does not impede her ability to dance with other nobles. But I'm pretty darn sure the motivation here is to be a source of consternation for Elend. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You're pretty sure?
No, I was going to repeat myself, but then you started talking, so talk more.
Oh, yeah, I know. I do that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, he'll take it. There you go. So, it was so smart. I found it so smart what she's doing, and also just how interesting the interpersonal dynamics are, that this actually is a way forward. Yes, you can say, oh, that's so manipulative or whatever, but socially, I like this sort of dynamic thing that you have to do, and she's finding a way to make something look different socially. I love that idea. I love that sort of intrigue, that and the way that that's written. But also, yeah, I think it's twofold. She does want to do her job. She has to try and get around the whole thing of people not asking her to dance. She needs to get information, but also, yeah, she also, maybe she does also like this idea of being able to make Elend jealous, because look at all these other people asking me to dance, and also I've put you in the friend zone. Now what you do? So, like,
I was gonna say,
yeah, that's what she's doing. She's also so this is it's smart and also very funny in the context of her crush. She's playing with him. So it's like, well, you won't admit you like me. Well, then fine. I won't like you. Like, oh, geez, romance is so funny.
Lise perked up, and he seemed to grow a little less insecure. Oh, why, that makes sense.
Yes, Elend has been like an older brother to me during my time here in Lutherdale.
Lise smiled.
I ask you about him because he doesn't speak much of himself.
The Ventures have all been quiet lately, ever since the attack on their keep several months back.
You know much about that?
Lise shook his head. No one tells me anything. He glanced down, watching their feet. You're very good at dancing, Lady Renaud. You must have attended many balls back in your home city.
You flatter me, my lord.
No, really. You're so graceful. Vin smiled, feeling a slight surge of confidence.
Aww.
Yeah. Yes, Lee said almost to himself. You're not at all like Lady Shan said. He stopped, jerking slightly as if realizing what he was saying.
What?
Nothing, Lee said, his blush rising. I'm sorry, it was nothing.
Lady Shan. Remember that name.
She prodded Lise further as the dance progressed, but he was obviously too inexperienced to know much. He did feel that there was a tension rising between the houses. Though the balls continued, there were more and more absences as people didn't attend parties thrown by their political rivals. When the dance ended, Vin felt good about her efforts. She probably hadn't discovered much of value to Kelsier, however. Lise was only the beginning. She'd work up to more important people.
Which means I'm going to have to attend a lot more of these balls.
It wasn't that the balls themselves were unpleasant, especially now that she was more confident in her dancing, but more balls meant fewer chances to be out in the mists.
Oh, remember the mists? Oh, yeah. Sorry, we're just so obsessed with this boy. now remember the mist. Good. Well done. But not that Sazed would let me go anyway.
She thought with an inward sigh, smiling politely as Lise bowed and retreated. Elend had spread his books across the table, and her alcove was lit by several more candelabra, apparently filched from other tables.
Well, we've at least got thieving in common.
Vin is funny!
Yeah, it's cute.
Elend hunched over the table, making notations in a small pocket-sized book. He didn't look up as she sat. Sazed, she noticed, was nowhere to be seen. I sent the terraceman to dinner, Elend said distractedly as he scribbled. No need for him to go hungry while you twirled down below. Vin raised an eyebrow regarding the books that dominated her table as she watched Elend push one tome aside, leaving it open to a specific page, and pulled over another. So, how was the aforementioned twirling, anyway? So first off, Sazed's gone. He probably would have had to go anyway, but I kind of feel like he really would have wanted to stay because of the Elend situation.
Yes, yeah, I think so. But yeah, he can't be like, no, I won't listen to you. He can't do that. So yeah, he's been sent off. And okay, fine. Oh yes, and also his immediate thing is like, oh, he's going to talk about her twirling around. Wasn't that interesting? But also, that's the immediate question. I'm going to ask how that dancing went. Okay, it was actually kind of fun.
I thought you weren't very good at it.
I wasn't. I practiced. You may find this information surprising, but sitting in the back of a room reading books in the dark doesn't exactly help one become a better dancer.
Is that a proposition? Elend asked, pushing aside his book and selecting another. It's unladylike to ask a man to dance, you know.
Oh, I wouldn't want to take you away from your reading,
Vin said, turning a book toward her. She grimaced. The text was written in a small, cramped hand.
Besides, dancing with you would undermine all of the work I just did.
At that, Elend finally looked up. Work?
Yes, Sazed was right. Lord Lys finds you intimidating, and he found me intimidating by association. It could be quite disastrous to a young lady's social life if all of the young men assumed her unavailable, simply because an annoying lord decided to study at her table.
So
I told him that you were simply showing me the ways of court, kind of like an older brother.
Older brother?
Yes, but she's cashing in on this.
And he's clearly like, shit.
Hold up. Much older. I mean, you've got to be at least twice my age.
Twice your... Valette, I'm 21. Unless you're a very mature 10-year-old, I'm nowhere near twice your age.
I've never been good with math.
Elend has been outplayed here.
Yeah, sorry. She's too quick.
And that is such a funny line. I've never been good at math. Elend sighed, rolling his eyes. Nearby, Lord Lys was speaking quietly with his group of friends, gesturing toward Vin and Elend. Hopefully one would come ask her to dance soon.
Do you know Lady Shan?
Surprisingly, Elend looked up. Shan Elar?
I assume so. Who is she?
Elend turned back to his book. Nobody important. Vin raised both eyebrows.
Elend, I've only been doing this for a few months, but even I know not to trust a comment like that.
Well, I might be engaged to her.
You have a fiancé?
I'm not exactly sure. We haven't really done anything about the situation for a year or so. Everyone's likely forgotten the matter by now.
Great.
A moment later, one of Lisa's friends approached. Glad to be rid of the frustrating Venture air, Vin stood, accepting the young lord's hand. As she walked to the dance floor, she glanced at Elend and caught him peeking over the book at her. He immediately turned back to his research with an overtly indifferent air.
Just the navigation of, I don't like you, or I do like you, but I don't like you, and I don't care. This just all this back and forth is very, it's entertaining.
I don't think he expected her to fight back.
Yeah. He did not expect this from her. And also, you know what? Also, when he did say work, I think that's also a little subtly endearing thing for him, because she is noticing that she has to do work within this context. She's doing noble things. And also this is her comment where she's like, yeah, now look what you've done to my social situation, by the way. So I've now gone and maneuvered myself to make it easier for me. You had no consideration, so I found a way myself, and you're gonna have to just deal with it. And the much older and all of that, like poking fun at him being older and being a brother or whatever, friend zoning really hard. That's also just a way of kind of, like you said, fighting back. It's like, okay, fine, you put me in this position. Well, look what I did to you. I'm not going to just sit here and be, I'm not going to just be something you're using for fun.
You thought we were playing checkers, but clearly this is a game of baccarat.
Yes? Not that I played either.
Next section of this chapter, Vin sat down at her table feeling a remarkable level of exhaustion. She resisted the urge to pull off her shoes and massage her feet. She suspected that wouldn't be very ladylike. She quietly turned on her copper, then burned pewter, strengthening her body and washing away a bit of her fatigue. She let her pewter lapse, then her copper. Kelsier had assured her that with copper on, she couldn't be spotted as an allomancer. Vin wasn't so certain. With pewter burning, her reactions were too fast, her body too strong. It seemed to her that an observant person would be able to notice such inconsistencies, whether or not they themselves were an allomancer. Coolest Vin line.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely loved that.
Yet an observant person would also want to know why we are speaking about Valette in third person. That sort of thing.
True.
Sorry.
Also,
No, sorry. I shat on the cool line. It really was.
all the same, both fair.
Mm-hmm.
With the pewter off, her fatigue returned. She'd been trying to wean herself off constant pewter lately. Her wound was to the point that it only hurt badly if she twisted the wrong way, and she wanted to recover her strength on her own if she could. In a way, her fatigue this evening was a good thing. It was a result of an extended period of dancing. Now that the young men regarded Elend as a guardian rather than a romantic interest, they had no qualms about asking Vin to dance. And worried that she would make an unintended political statement by refusing, Vin had agreed to each request. A few months ago, she would have laughed at the idea of exhaustion from dancing. However, her sore feet, aching side, and tired legs were only part of it. The effort of memorizing names and houses, not to mention putting up with her dancing partner's fluffy conversation, left her mentally drained.
It's a good thing Sazed had me wear slippers instead of heels.
Vin thought with a sigh, sipping her chilled juice. The terraceman hadn't returned from his dinner yet. Notably, Elend wasn't at the table either, though his books still lay scattered across its top. Vin eyed the tomes. Perhaps if she appeared to be reading, the young men would leave her alone for a bit. She reached over, riffling through the books for a likely candidate. The one she was most interested in, Ellen's small leather-bound notebook, was missing.
Yeah, for me that was just, oh yes, Vin the Snoopy, Vin the paranoid, Vin that I need to know. She's curious, but that's so Vin. Just looking at the one, of course that's the one she would be most curious about. It's the one that he's writing and it's about him. But also just it throws back to her listening at the door, basically, in Clubs' shop and things like that. She wants to know things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go on.
Instead, she picked a large blue tome and hefted it over to her side at the table. She'd picked it for its large lettering. Was paper really so expensive that scribes needed to cram as many lines to a page as possible? Vin sighed, leafing through the volume.
I can't believe people read books this big.
Despite the large lettering, each page was filled with words. It would take days and days to read the entire thing. Reen had taught her reading so that she would be able to decipher contracts, write notes, and perhaps play a noblewoman. But her training hadn't extended to texts this massive.
Historical practices in imperial political rule.
The first page read. The chapters had titles like
The 5th Century Governorship Program
and
The Rise of Scar Plantations.
She flipped through to the end of the book, figuring it would probably be the most interesting. Ha, young Vin. The final chapter was titled
Current Political Structure.
Then she thinks to herself,
So far, the plantation system has produced a far more stable government than previous methodologies. The structure of dominances, with each provincial lord taking command of and responsibility for his scar, has fostered a competitive environment where discipline is harshly enforced. The Lord Ruler apparently finds this system troubling because of the freedom it allows the aristocracy. However, The relative lack of organized rebellion is undoubtedly enticing. During the 200 years that the system has been in place, there hasn't been a major uprising in the 5 inner dominances. Of course, this political system is only an extension of the greater theocratic rulership. The aristocracy's independence has been tempered by a renewed vigor in obligated enforcement. No lord, no matter how lofty, would be advised to think himself above their law. The call from an inquisitor can come to anyone.
So
it makes sense that Vin would stumble over reading, okay?
Absolutely. It is such a cool world building technique to show book passages. And that really, really excited me when I was reading this chapter for the first time. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Show us more. While the text itself was dry, she was surprised that the Lord Ruler allowed such analytical discussions of his empire. That is quite a big thing for me. What did you think of that actually being allowed? Like, as much as we spoke about the text, right? The text being a really good world-building mechanism. What about what I'm saying is, what do you think of this actually existing? It was quite a surprise to me as well.
I mean, I haven't seen anything too subversive in the text yet.
Well, it's just that they're discussing it at all is quite interesting. It's like you would think that they don't really talk about it much. You have to just follow the doctrine, but this does seem like it is a bit analytical of like how dare you even question it? Like, well, what do you? It's not so much questioning it. It's just like, what are you even talking about it for? You're not. Why are you not praising it? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is this not propaganda? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not talking about it in a certain way, which is how I would expect that to be. But clearly it's indicating to us that the nobility is actually not as under control as we thought it was. But also in this text we do get the kind of push of, well, actually you have to do well to listen to the inquisitors. So yeah.
And that's the big thing I think to settle in on is, even though there is this whole system of governance, it's all second fiddle to the theocracy.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, now let us get back to the action. Clickety-clack.
Yeah. Vin frowned. While the text was dry, she was surprised that the Lord Ruler allowed such analytical discussions of his empire. She settled back in her chair, holding up the book, but she didn't read anymore. She was too exhausted from the hours she had spent covertly trying to wiggle information out of her dancing partners. Unfortunately, politics didn't pay heed to Vin's state of exhaustion. Though she did her best to appear absorbed in Elend's book, a figure soon approached her table. Vin sighed, preparing herself for another dance. She soon realized, however, that the newcomer wasn't a nobleman, but a terraceman steward. Like Sazed, he wore robes with overlapping V designs and was rather fond of jewelry. Lady Wallet Renaud? The tall man asked in a faintly accented voice.
Yes?
My mistress, Lord Shan Elar, requires your presence at their table.
Requires?
Vin thought. She already didn't like that tone, and she had little desire to meet with Elend's former betrothed. But House Elariel was one of the more powerful great houses. She was probably not someone to dismiss offhandedly. The terraceman waited expectantly. Also, this is done at Keep Elariel, right?
So like,
when
you come to my house and
and you turn me down?
Yeah.
No. Good thinking, Vin.
Very well,
Vin said, rising with as much grace as she could muster. The terraceman led Vin toward a table a short distance from her own. The table was well attended with 5 women seated around it, and Vin picked out Shan immediately. Lady Elariel was obviously the statuesque woman with long dark hair. She wasn't participating in the conversation, but seemed to dominate it nonetheless. Her arms sparkled with lavender bracelets that matched her dress, and she turned dismissive eyes toward Vin as she approached. Those dark eyes were keen. Vin felt exposed before them, stripped of her fine dress, reduced to a dirty urchin once again.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to do I do her southern?
No, do her whatever way you want,
comes to,
as long as it is suitably different from Lady Wallet.
May I say, I already hate her. She's got dismissive eyes. And yes, mean girl. She, as soon as she looks at you, you're like, oh my God, I'm ugly, I'm horrible, I need to get out of here. Like, that's exactly what happens when an intimidating female looks at you. So I really don't like this woman, but here we go. You may sit.
Is that her first line?
It is. Oh, sorry. Excuse us, lady. Sorry, I'm all the way down there. Sorry. She wouldn't say it nicely either, hey? She's going to just say, like, excuse us kind of thing. She's not going to be nice to those ladies either. Or what do you think?
These are her hens.
Her cronies, yeah.
Yeah, I think she would be a bit nicer to them than she will be to Vin, but still in command, unquestionably.
Yeah, I don't think she would. I just feel like she wouldn't put too much effort into commanding someone. Excuse us, ladies.
Shan said. The women immediately did as ordered, departing the table in a stately flurry. Shan picked up a fork and began to meticulously dissect and devour a small piece of dessert cake. Vin stood uncertainly, the terraceman's steward taking up a position behind Shan's chair.
You may sit. I feel like a scar again.
Vin thought, sitting.
Noblemen treat each other this way too. You're in an enviable position, child. How is that?
Vin asked.
Address me as Lady Shan, or perhaps your ladyship.
Shan waited expectantly, taking petite bites of the cake. Finally, Vin said,
Why is that, your ladyship? Because young Lord Venture has decided to use you in his games. That means you have the opportunity to be used by me as well.
Vin frowned.
Remember to stay in character. You're the easy intimidated valet. I need to stay in character too. I get you, Vin. Wouldn't it be better to not be used at all, your ladyship? Nonsense. Even an uncultured simpleton like yourself must see the importance of being useful to your betters.
Shan said, the words including the insult without vehemence. She simply seemed to take it for granted that Vin would agree. Vin sat dumbfounded. None of the other nobility had treated her in such a manner. Of course, the only member of a great house she'd met so far was Elend.
I trust from your vapid look that you accept your place. Do well, child, and perhaps I will let you join my retinue. You could learn much from the ladies here in Lutherdale. Such as? Look at yourself sometime, child. Hair like you've undergone some terrible disease, so scrawly that your dress hangs like a bag. Being a noblewoman in Lutherdale requires perfection, not that.
She said the last word while waving her hand dismissively toward Vin. Okay, so first off, poor Vin, who thought she had such a beautiful dress. Elend complimented the dress.
And the other lords were asking her to dance and things. And she thought she was killing it. And this one just comes over here and just like, never mind. And look, statement of appreciation for everybody bearing with my lack of acting ability. This woman, when I read her, I just want to say she was formidable. I don't know how to do that. Maybe one day I'll be better. But this woman was intimidating. When I read her, it was when I did this, when I read through it, I'm like, oh my god, I have to do this woman. I don't know how I'm going to portray the way she actually makes me feel, because she is so just above it all and makes you feel very small. Makes Vin feel very small, even though Vin does get irritated.
Look, we're gonna get to a point where I express a certain amount of empathy for her, and that's where you're gonna hang your hat on the performance for her.
Okay,
we'll get you there. There is this is going to be cringe for me to say. I'm sorry, Kitteh. There is a sexy lady inside of you waiting to come out.
Yes,
that just bitch all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is it. She's very sexy, and yeah, I don't know how to do it, but just try to listen to the words and find it there. Go and read the book, maybe. But yes, that is what she is. She's very pretty. She knows she's very pretty. She knows she's valuable. And she is very judgmental of Vin and anyone else, really. She's very high value. And yeah.
Vin flushed. There was a strange power to this woman's demeaning attitude. With a start, Vin realized that Shan reminded her of some crew leaders she had known. Cammon, the latest of them. Men who would hit a person, fully expecting no resistance. Everyone knew that resisting such men only made the beating worse.
What do you want from me?
That's Vin, not Shan.
I don't know how to do that southernly. Because also she's not asking, like, what do you want from me? Because she's not feeling that. She's feeling a bit pissed off. So she's like, What do you want from me? That's how I took it. It was just like, she's just, okay, fine, what do you want from me? Just tell
Cool.
me.
Cool. Shan cocked an eyebrow as she set aside her fork, the cake half eaten. The terraceman took the plate and walked off with it.
You really are a dull-minded thing, aren't you?
Shan asked. Now, that frustrated me about Shan, because as far as I can tell, Vin has been displaying a certain degree of intelligence with her. It's better not to be used at all, right?
Yeah.
And the direct "what do you want with me?" question, I think shows traits of intelligence. But of course,
Yes.
Shan can't acknowledge that. That's giving Vin too much power. So she has to demean and belittle.
It's really clever the way this happens, yeah. The way that
But
this is how she does demean. But I agree. Vin has not given any dull-minded things. That's so far off.
yeah, but it really does also make you dislike Shan.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we
Vin,
know how smart Vin is.
yeah. Vin ground her teeth.
Oh, really? In my book, it says Vin paused.
Interesting. I've been noticing a handful of differences from the reading that you've been doing, but yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder what happens between editions where you make these are subtle changes, but they're still changes. So it would be interesting to speak to an
Mr.
editor or whatever.
Sanderson, or an
Yeah, Mr.
editor,
Sanderson. Yeah, just because
or a
he has
publishing
to
company.
anything. Yeah, just to understand how these tiny little changes come about. It's quite interesting. Okay.
When we get Brandon Sanderson on this
Yeah.
show,
Next episode.
Vin ground her teeth.
What does her ladyship want from me? I'll tell you eventually, assuming Lord Venture decides to keep playing with you.
Vin caught the barest flash of hatred in her eyes when she said Elend's name.
For now, tell me of your conversation with him this evening.
Vin opened her mouth to respond, but something felt wrong. She only caught the barest flicker of it, and she wouldn't have noticed that much without Breeze's training.
A soother. Interesting.
Okay. So my first thought was, is she just a soother, or is she Mistborn?
Well, if she was, wouldn't I guess Vin needs to be burning another metal to sense allomancy from someone else. So she's feeling the touch of her, as in emotionally she's feeling that. So I guess it could be that this bitch is burning copper as well, while she's doing it, so she wouldn't sense. Yeah, so it's not definitive by any means.
I think the ability to tell if one's emotions are being manipulated is a different sense than being able to tell if someone is casting allomancy and can be detected through other allomancy. Ultimately, I don't think she's Mistborn, but I think she's just a misting. But just because soothing seems to be such a perfect fit for her personality, which makes one wonder, does the power influence the personality, or is the personality manifest the power?
Yeah, she's used to getting what she wants. So
Yes.
and that goes hand in hand with her power. So
And then my second thought, and what made me really dislike this character, or rather this person, is that it has been said that it's frowned upon to use allomancy at balls.
But she's so high above everything that she would just use it anyway on Vin.
Well, I mean, I assume virtually all noblemen do, even though they're not
supposed to.
supposed to.
Yeah, that's normal. It's normal to do things you're not supposed to, and you just pretend they don't happen. That sort of thing, for sure.
Yeah. And
but
clearly she was very subtle with the touch as well. So
yeah, Vin has said like it was subtle. She wouldn't have noticed it otherwise. But also, she would just assume. She's the kind of person to me that would just assume that there's no danger here with Vin. So it's not even. I don't even need to worry about her being a Mistborn. You know, like that. That's not a thing. She is a lowborn person, it's okay for her to be using her soothing powers on this. So even if Vin noticed, what is she gonna do about it? You know?
Yes.
God, I hate it. A soother. Interesting.
Shan was trying to make Vin complacent, so that she would talk, perhaps? Vin began to relate her conversation with Elend, staying away from anything interesting. However, something still felt odd to her. Something about the way that Shan was playing with her emotions. From the corner of her eye, Vin saw Shan's terraceman return from the kitchens. However, he didn't walk back toward Shan's table. He headed in the other direction, toward Vin's own table. He stopped beside it and began to poke through Elend's books.
Whatever he wants, I can't let him find it.
Vin stood suddenly, finally provoking an overt reaction in Shan as the woman looked up with surprise.
I just remembered that I told my terraceman to find me at my table. He'll be worried if I'm not sitting there. Oh, for the Lord Ruler's sake. Charles, there's no need. I'm sorry, your ladyship. I've got to go.
It was a bit obvious, but it was the best she could manage. Vin curtsied and withdrew from Shan's table, leaving the displeased woman behind. The terraceman was good. By the time Vin was a few steps away from Shan's table, he had noticed Vin and continued on his way, his motions impressively smooth. Vin arrived back at her table, wondering if she'd made a blunder by leaving Shan so rudely. However, she was growing too tired to care. As she noticed another group of young men eyeing her, she hurriedly sat, plopping open one of Elend's books. Fortunately, the ploy worked better this time. The young men eventually trailed away, leaving Vin in peace, and she sat back, relaxing slightly with the book open before her. The evening was growing late, and the ballroom was slowly beginning to empty.
The books.
She thought with a frown, picking up her cup of juice to take a sip.
What did the terrorism want with them?
She scanned the table, trying to notice if anything had been disturbed, but Elend had left the books in such a state of disarray that it was hard to tell. However, a small book sitting beneath another tome caught her eye. Most of the other texts lay open to a specific page. She had seen Elend perusing them. This particular book was closed, and she couldn't remember him ever opening it. It had been there before. She recognized it because it was so much thinner than the others, so the terraceman hadn't left it behind. Okay, let's hold on a moment. And there was a thing I wanted to say about why Lady Shan is so curious about the books he's reading. Because my initial take on Lady Shan was spurned lover, thought she was going to marry the heir to the greatest house. But the fact that she sent her terraceman's servant to go look at the books hints that she suspects, at the very least, revolutionary tendencies?
Something, yeah. And it's part of an ongoing sort of plan with her. It's Vin has come in, she's just a pawn now. She's just a piece on this board now. She's going to be used as they see fit or whatever, or as this Shan sees fit. Initially I thought the only reason she would be calling her over was to to make her to just be mean to her, because you think you want to just put her down because she doesn't want Vin walking around thinking that Elend actually likes her, or she doesn't want Vin walking around, or Valette walking around feeling like there's a victory in having Elend on in her space. But this
And I don't imagine that Shan considers Vin even close to being a romantic rival.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very much like it's maybe it's a bit insulting that she would find it insulting that Vin thinks she's a romantic rival, but she herself would not find Vin threatening at all. And I think, but Vin did notice something about the way that she was doing this with the emotions, the way she was soothing her. She did notice, wait, seems like you're trying to make why she looked into the complacency. She was like, wait, what does she want me to be complacent for? And then she did seem to realize okay, this was about distraction. So it's not just because Vin probably also went in with this, okay, what is this cow doing, man? She's just trying to be mean because of Elend. But then she realized, oh wait, there's even more, and there's actual real danger. This is real danger. That's why she is so rude and so weird and just runs off, because it's like, you know what? I don't have time to even pretend that something came up or whatever. I just need to get that guy away from the books. It was good instinct, I think, on Vin's part.
Yeah.
And there is an ongoing clash between these houses, and having some sort of dirt on Elend to give to the Inquisitors could ruin the whole house. So, and
Yes.
for personal reasons for Shan, like, haha, there you go, you mess with me to see what happens. But also, in terms of literally the game of their houses, it's a move that could make Alicia or whatever their house is rise above.
Alariel? Yeah.
Alariel, sorry.
Oh,
Found
okay.
an S there somehow. Okay.
Curious, Vin reached over and slid the book out from underneath the larger book. It had a black leather cover, and the spine read,
Weather Patterns of the Northern Dominance.
Vin frowned, turning the book over in her hands. There was no title page, nor was an author listed. It launched directly into text.
And also note that this isn't italicized, which is very strange. Is it italicized for you?
No, it is not.
Interesting. Interesting choice, editors. When regarding the final empire in its entirety, one certain fact is unmistakable. For a nation ruled by a self-proclaimed divinity, I suppose you could read it, hey? Because it's not in Vin's
Yes,
head. Yeah,
but I
do
would
it.
like you to read it.
Okay. When regarding the final empire in its entirety, one certain fact is unmistakable. For a nation ruled by a self-proclaimed divinity, the empire has experienced a frightening number of colossal leadership errors. Most of these have been successfully covered up and can only be found in the metal mines of what? Feruchemists? Feruchemists?
Ferochemists is how I taught it.
Feruchemists. Okay, feruchemists. Or on the pages of banned texts. However, one only need look to the near past to note such blunders as the massacre at Devonay, the revision of the deepness doctrine, and the relocation of the Renates people, or Renats people. Just
Okay.
a note there,
Look.
yes. I thought you would want to say something. Yeah.
Ferochemists and metal
Feruchemists.
mines. So
Mhm.
the metal mines aren't necessarily a close secret of the keepers. That suggests, right?
Yeah. Yes, it does. I mean, it's maybe this is from the keepers. I don't know where this comes from. Who wrote this? Yeah. So I don't know how you get hold of this, but the point is, yes, that is such a good point. Such a good insight. The
What
well, I guess
what
yeah,
what
it's not an open, it's not a secret. People know about metal mines of the
what is
keepers at least.
what is the root word there? Feru.
Fair. I don't know.
So I just Googled Feru, and the dictionary has it as a bast fiber derived from an African tree and used in making rope.
So like fiber chemist or
If Sazed and Terrace as a whole is of an African influence, and given that I saw many of the fan castings for Sazed to be African or African American, then the phrase Feru and chemist in association with metal mines suggests that perhaps these ferrochemists are Terrace. Is that
yeah,
logical?
yeah, and that would also mean keepers are known, are haven't been forgotten as well. I would say because they they're related. The terracness of a person is related to the keeperness of a person, and they haven't been forgotten. So, point is, we've just made an asterisk there. We've just said, take note, that might come back in a further chapter.
But I'm
Yeah.
also looking at the word as translated from French,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it means with a keen interest in. So
Or that's like a
I
scientist sort of.
I don't have the IQ. I can't be Vati Vidya and track down all the different kinds of
Etymology. We need a
etymologic.
diagram. I'm kidding. No.
I'm trying here. I'm really trying.
We've been going quite long. We're gonna get through it.
Yes, this has been an exceptionally long record, but let's continue. Also, just such cool world building. Massacre at Devonay, the deepness doctrine,
The
a
revision.
relocation. Yeah.
They revised it. Oh, so they made changes to some deepness doctrine, And oh, oopsie poopsie, we're going to just pretend that didn't happen. Interesting.
Yes. Okay, continue.
Relocation. Oh, they relocated the Renat. How did you read that?
Renates.
I don't remember what the audiobook did. Either way, they relocated them instead of killing them. Nice. The Lord
So
Ruler
nice.
does not. Yeah, the Lord Ruler does not age. That much, at least, is undeniable. This text, however, purports to prove that he is by no means infallible. During the days before the Ascension, mankind suffered chaos and uncertainty caused by endless cycles of kings, emperors, and other monarchs. One would think that now, with a single immortal governor, society would finally have an opportunity to find stability and enlightenment. It is the remarkable lack of either attribute in the final empire that is the Lord Ruler's most grievous oversight. Damn! That is definitely not something we need the rest of the nobility seeing in any one of those positions. Yeah, this is heresy. This is bad.
That is like, why on earth would Elend leave that?
Yeah, just keep that on you. He's walked around with books in his pockets before. Yeah, that is quite. Or is it planted? But no, we see he picks it up and has extra care for it. He's not surprised.
Yeah.
By it later on. So yeah, he was just that dumb, I suppose.
A small part of me wish Finn had kept it.
Yes, because it's like it shows that he's an infallible. I mean, he's fallible. So that's what we need. We need that. We need that information. So I'm like,
and then Elend could have had like cause to visit Vin at Felice, or anyway, that's in the what if.
The what if episode. Yeah.
Vin stared at the page. Some of the words were beyond her skill, but she was able to grasp the author's meaning. He was saying, she snapped the book closed and hurriedly put it back in its place. What would happen if the obligators discovered that Elend owned such a text? She glanced to the sides. They were there, of course, mingling with the crowds like at the other ball, marked by their gray robes and tattooed faces. Many sat at tables with noblemen, friends, or spies for the Lord Ruler. Nobody seemed quite as comfortable when an obligator was nearby.
What is Elend doing with a book like that? A powerful nobleman like himself? Why would he read texts that malign the Lord Ruler?
A hand fell on her shoulder, and Vin spun reflexively, pewter and copper flaring in her stomach. Whoa, Elend said, stepping back and raising his hand. Has anyone ever told you how jumpy you are, Valette? Vin relaxed, sitting back in her chair and extinguishing her medals. Elend sauntered over to his place and sat down. Enjoying Heberon? Vin frowned, and Elend nodded to the larger, thick book that still sat before her.
No, it's boring. I was just pretending to read so that the men would leave me alone for a bit.
Now see, your cleverness is coming back to snap at you. Vin raised an eyebrow as Elend began to gather up his books, stacking them on the table. He didn't appear to notice that she'd moved the weather book, but he did carefully slide it in the middle of the stack. Vin turned her eyes from the book.
I probably shouldn't tell him about Shan. Not until I talk to Sazed. I think my cleverness did its job well. After all, I came to the ball to dance.
I find dancing overrated.
You can't remain aloof from the court forever, Lord Venture. You're the heir of a very important house.
He sighed, stretching and leaning back in his chair. I suppose you're right, he said with surprising frankness. But the longer I hold out, the more annoyed my father will become. That in itself is a worthy goal.
He's not the only one you hurt.
Loved this.
Yes,
Sorry,
here we go.
Continue.
Very perceptive, very mature. Wake up. Oh, anyway. He's not the only one you hurt. What of the girls that never get asked to dance because you're too busy rummaging through your books?
As I recall, someone was just pretending to read in order to avoid dancing. I don't think the ladies have any trouble finding more amicable partners than me. Vin raised an eyebrow again.
I didn't have trouble because I'm new and I'm low-ranked. I suspect that the ladies closer to your station have trouble finding partners, amicable or not. As I understand it, noblemen are uncomfortable dancing with women above their station.
And that moment right there, and then how Elend responds to it, but that moment specifically is what granted me a tremendous amount of empathy for Shan.
Yes.
And I think I had brought it up a little bit earlier, but if she is a daughter of the second largest house, and she was promised to the heir of the largest house.
Mm-hmm.
Elend's games are potentially cruel and causing her own mating issues.
Yeah. There's no one else for her, actually. Like, it's causing a lot of difficulties, and it does hurt her. She's like, if and I'm talking about Shan, she is engaged to him, so nobody can actually touch her, like try with her, because that would be an act against the ventures. But at the same time, she's not getting any benefits of being engaged to him because he ignores her. So you, it, it's deeply affecting her, actually. So you can definitely understand her motivations and her hatred for Elend, because it's like, you are making my life difficult. There's not much that I can do, and there's not many other people that are willing to even be with me. I'm so powerful, yet now I can't do my duty and bring my house into a better position just because you are messing about. And Vin's very
Right.
perceptive about that. I like that Vin didn't, because he got very flippant and made a cute comment or whatever, but Vin didn't allow that to go. I like that she
Right.
didn't let that go.
And then back to what I was saying earlier, what about the actual Valette Renaults out there whom
Mm-hmm.
Elend is using in his rebelliousness and his punkishness, who are suffering because of this behavior?
Yeah, he's being thoughtless and just using them. Oh, whatever. It's just because of his relationship with his dad. Really, that's really immature.
My inner misogynist is going to come out for a bit and say, of course, women don't like to date down,
Yeah.
which is its own issue when you're a daughter of the second largest house, but
Yep. Exactly. She wouldn't
doesn't
mm,
make what Ellen's doing
any better.
right.
He's just as bad as her. Actually, just maybe. Yeah, he's just as thoughtless as she is. Actually, she is more thoughtful. She doesn't. She's honest about not giving a damn about the other person.
And
Yeah.
it's so great for Vin to just like call it out, which is
Mm,
another notch in the Ellen's gonna develop a crush on this girl
yeah, because
thing.
she's yeah.
And if I recall correctly, Elend seems to take the criticism well, just like when he
Mm,
apologized for insulting Sazed. Although noteworthy, he didn't apologize to Sazed, he apologized to Vin. Um,
yeah.
uh, but he takes this criticism well as well. So that's another notch in my likability for him.
Yeah.
So, and ultimately, that will end me with Elend and Shan in this sort of strange space where I like Elend more than I did before, but I still don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Shan more than I think I'm supposed to like her.
Yeah, I'm definitely just do not like Shan at all. I feel sorry for her, yes, but I think I have a lot more disdain for her than you do.
Indeed. Elend hesitated, clearly searching for a comeback.
What is it, Elend Venture? Why are you so intent on avoiding your duty?
Duty? Elend asked, leaning toward her, his posture earnest. Valette, this isn't duty. This ball, this is fluff and distraction, a waste of time.
And women? Are they a waste too?
Women? Women are like thunderstorms. They're beautiful to look at, and sometimes they're nice to listen to, but most of the time they're downright inconvenient. Vin felt her jaw drop slightly. Then she noticed the twinkle in his eye, the smile at the edges of his lips, and she found herself smiling as well.
You say these things to provoke me.
His smile widened. I'm charming that way. He stood looking at her fondly. Oh, Valette, don't let them trick you into taking yourself too seriously. It's not worth the effort. But I must bid you a good evening. Try not to let months pass between balls you attend in the future.
I'll think about it.
Please do, Elend said, bending down and scooting the tall stack of books off the table and into his arms. He teetered for a moment, then steadied himself and peeked to the side. Who knows? Maybe one of these days you'll actually get me to dance. Vin smiled, nodding as the nobleman turned and walked off, circling the perimeter of the ballroom's second tier. He was soon met by two other young men. Vin watched curiously as one of the men clapped Elend on the shoulder in a friendly way, then took half of the books. The three began to walk together, chatting. He has friends in the rebellion. It's not just him.
And that makes sense that then Shan would have these suspicions about him. There's some sort of suspicions around this guy, so that's why they were looking at the books.
Yes.
Because he's very obviously speaking to certain people that he shouldn't.
And the question is, will Vin be invited to one of these hangout
meetings? Yes.
Vin didn't recognize the newcomers. She sat thoughtfully as Sazed finally appeared out of a side hallway, and Vin eagerly waved him forward. He approached with a hurried step.
Who are those men with Lord Venture?
Sazed squinted behind his spectacles. Why, one of them is Lord Justice Lecar. The other is a Hastings, so I don't know his given name.
You sound surprised.
Houses Lecar and Hastings are both political rivals of House Venture, mistress. Noblemen often visit with each other in smaller after-ball parties, making alliances. The terraceman turned back to her. Mr. Kelsier will wish to hear of this, I think. It is time we retire. Second name drop.
Oh, jeez. It irks me more because we pointed it out, so it's like this counter in my head, you know? And like it's like I imagine just this soft talking that Kelsier.
If Shan is a Mistborn and not just a soother, she has no problem with soothing at balls. What's stopping her from
eavesdropping?
We've discussed it. I don't want to get too negative. This is just
Grr.
Yeah. Grr. Mr. Kelsier will wish to hear of this, I think. It's time we retire.
I agree. And so do my feet. Let's go.
Sazed nodded, and the two of them made their way to the front door.
What took you so long?
I came back several times, mistress, but you were always dancing. I decided I would be of far more use speaking with the servants than I would be standing beside your table. Vin nodded, accepting her shawl, then walked out the front entryway and down the carpeted stairs, Sazed behind her. Her step was quick. She wanted to get back and tell Kelsier the names she'd memorized before she forgot the whole list. She paused at the landing, waiting for a servant to fetch her carriage. As she did, she noticed something odd. A small disturbance was going on a short distance away in the mists. She stepped forward, but Sazed put a hand on her shoulder, holding her back. A lady wouldn't wander off into the mists. Oh, that's not why Sazed grabbed her, is it?
Mm-mm.
Like, I think he knows what's about to happen.
Yeah.
She reached to burn copper and tin, but waited. The disturbance was getting closer. It resolved as a guard appeared from the mists, pulling a small, struggling form. A ska boy in dirty clothing, face soot-stained. The soldier gave Vin a wide berth, nodding apologetically to her as he approached one of the guard captains. Vin burned tin to hear what was said. Kitchen boy. Tried to beg from one of the noblemen inside a carriage when they stopped for the gates to open. The captain simply nodded. The soldier pulled his captive back out into the mists, walking toward the far courtyard. The boy struggled, and the soldier grunted with annoyance, keeping a tight grip. Vin watched him go. Sazed's hand on her shoulder, as if to hold her back. Of course, she couldn't help the boy. He shouldn't have. In the mists beyond the eyesight of regular people, the soldier drew out a dagger and slit the boy's throat. Vin jumped, shocked, as the sounds of the boy's struggling tapered off. The guard dropped the body, then grabbed it by a leg and began to drag it away. Vin stood, stunned, as her carriage pulled up. Mistress, Sazed prompted, but she simply stood there.
They killed him. Right here. Just a few paces away from where noblemen wait for their carriages. As if the death were nothing out of the ordinary. Just another skull, slaughtered, like an animal.
Or less than an animal. Nobody would slaughter pigs in a keep courtyard. The guard's posture as he'd performed the murder indicated that he'd simply been too annoyed with the struggling boy to wait for a more appropriate location. If any of the other nobility around Vin had noticed the event, they paid it no heed, continuing their chatting as they waited. Actually, they seemed a little more chatty now that the screams had stopped. Mistress, Sazed said again, pushing her forward. She allowed herself to be led into the carriage, her mind still distracted. It seemed such an impossible contrast to her. The pleasant nobility dancing inside a room sparkling with light and dresses, death in the courtyard. Didn't they care? Didn't they know?
This is the final empire, Vin. Don't forget the ash, because you see a little silk. If those people in there knew you were Scar, they'd have you slaughtered just as easily as they did that poor boy.
It was a sobering thought, one that absorbed her during the entire trip back to Felice.
Damn! It is a crazy contrast. Oh, that hits so hard. So hard.
Yeah. Such a nice, wonderful evening, a fantastic chapter, and then at the end, oh.
It's like we had all the action and the mistborning, and then, oh, by the way, here is Cameron hanging from a hook in his throat. That kind of contrast is just, whoo, like,
Yeah.
oh, it's really, and it's the way just the imagery of this boy just being dragged away, and yeah, that would also just change my perspective of the whole night. Like it will, and so it should. It's that's what it happens. Don't they know? It's like, yeah. And you're right as well, Sazed. You can see Sazed knew what was going to happen and was holding her back because he knew what was going to happen. She obviously it was all just happening too quickly. She didn't really know what she expected to happen. She thought, okay, he's going to be thrown out or something. And also then even so, she's like, oh, they could have found a more appropriate place to kill him, basically. Like, and that line, oh my God, that line about nobody slaughters pigs in the courtyard. Yeah, that's just, wow. Oh, anyway.
Yeah. Very depressing end to an otherwise lovely evening.
Yes, it just took everything away, though. It took this, yeah, it's taken all the joy out of this.
And how fresh is that boy? That guy? That guy that was oh so fresh in there?
Yeah.
Just in contrast?
It's evil. It's evil.
Yeah.
It's not just saying bad things. It's actually, look how they are treated. It's not, oh, we called them a bad word, or we did this. Literally a throat slit, dragged, boom, done. No questions. Nobody cares.
And then it's like you said, there seems to be this perception that the Ska are like monkeys in intelligence.
But even less so, like they're treated them less than animals, because you don't even you even have a bit more decency. Yeah, you have like a slaughterhouse. You have a place where that, oh, that's unsightly. Let's put that away. It's like, no, oh God, this is just too annoying. It's fine. It's okay. This annoyance, I can just go and take a whole life. Wow. Very good placement of that.
Yep.
It definitely had an effect. Oh, yes. Okay, before we go, one thing that I haven't brought up and that I remembered during this past week was, we spoke about snapping in the previous episode, and we understood exactly what snapping is now. It was, as you expected, that a traumatic event happened. So we remember Calcia did say, just back on the subjects of Elend, Calcia did say, oh, if there was ever a time to show your powers, it would be then. He almost died then. That could be actually the moment where he would have snapped. But that doesn't mean that he would have showed his powers that day and then used them. It just could have been the day that he snapped. I guess I just wanted to point that out in case at some point we do get a Mistborn Elend. Although I don't know. I think they would probably, Sanderson would probably try and keep him as powerless as possible so that it balances out with his political power. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I noticed that on just a listen through on one of the episodes that did air recently, and Calcia was saying he almost died. I was like, oh, that could have been a snapping moment. So yeah.
Could have been.
Mm-hmm. Just thought I'd put that in there.
Excellent.
Okay, everybody. Like and
subscribe to ThatDarnKitteh.
Subscribe to the No Nasty Program.
We know that how you curate your YouTube. I'm not going to.
Yeah, you know what, guys? It's been a long episode.
Click the buttons if you like, if you feel we earned it.
Yeah. Leave a comment about my beautiful acting. And yeah,
seriously, thanks for watching. During the premieres, I don't talk that much in the chat. That's totally just because I'm like social anxiety and what have you. But I do watch and read, and grateful.
He lurk.
So I lurk.
Statement of appreciation.
Statement of appreciation. Okay, get out of here. Go on.
Okay,
Get.
bye.
Bye.